Good day, everyone. Welcome to another edition of NMTV Talk Show. Today we are going to talk about living in denial or empowering ourselves with the knowledge we have acquired in any given situation or circumstances. I'm Dr. Nana. This is NMTV New York, and I have Dr. Chris here with me again.
Thank you for having me here today.
Thank you so much for coming. Now, what is denial? How do people live in denial? Living in denial happens when people or someone or individuals try to protect themselves by refusing to accept the truth about something that is happening in their life. In that case, that person may be living in denial. Their denial may not be in line with the actual reality. They just cuddle it anyway because they feel good that way. That means that person, you can evidently say that person is living in denial because they believe that doing that will help them a little bit to stay in that state of mind. Although research reveals that the initial short-term denial can be a good thing just to bring yourself out of that shock of, is this really happening? That may give you some time to adjust to the reality of what is actually happening, which in many cases may be painful or having a lot of impact in your life at that time. The fact is that for anyone to continue to live in denial is dangerous. You have to come to the reality of what is actually happening. So that's why we are here to share our thoughts about situations that will make you to continue to live in denial. Living in denial will not help anyone grow. If you are living in denial, you are going to be static. You are not going to be growing. We need to come out of that falsehood. It's important for those people who may be living in denial to come out of that falsehood. And it's also important for you to realize the reality of what is happening for you to be able to, come out of that falsehood. We get that is a process and it's difficult. Many of us have, been in that kind of situation where you are living in denial. So that's why we are here to share our thoughts on how you can actually help yourself to come out of that denial process. Now, on the other hand, we have empowerment. What is empowerment? How do you empower yourself with what you have gone through in life? Instead of living in denial, you either live in denial or you empower yourself with the situation you have come to realize, correct? Doing that will help you to discover and understand your strengths and weakness and what motivates you and how you can achieve your set goals. In whatever situation you find yourself, you either use it to empower yourself or you live in that denial and live in that falsehood. Because personal empowerment is a powerful tool we all need. Personal empowerment is about taking control of our own life, taking stock of our own life and making positive decisions based on what you want or what you desire or what your belief should be. So that brings me to what I want to ask you, Dr. Chris. My question to you, Dr. Chris, from our very many conversations, our very many discussions that we have been having, please, I want you to explain to our viewers, I want you to talk about the thoughts about church going, and what made you think, make the case clear to us, the essence of why we should go to church. Why do people need to go to church? What do you mean by that? That going to church is not serving God. So we want to understand that, because some people may be living in denial because of what is happening in the system in Nigeria. The essence of this program is to actually share our thoughts with others so they can understand our view in this situation. So I want you to share with our viewers, what do you mean by that? Going to church is not serving God.
So thank you again, Dr. Nana. As I said before, going to church is not serving God. Going to church is not worshiping God.
Okay.
But going to church is fellowship, is for the purpose of fellowshipping with one another, just as the Bible commanded. Now, to give a context to this, I want us to understand those three principal words: fellowship, worship, and service. Now, if you Google just the word fellowship, you will find out that the word says it's a friendly association, especially of people who share common interests, of like minds, like you said. They value their time together and fellowship to understand each other more. You understand?
Right.
So that's what fellowship is about. Again, friendly association of people with a common interest, with shared interest. That is fellowship. So let us now look at the word worship. What is worship? Worship, by definition, means the feeling or expression of reverence and adoration. Reverence and adoration for a deity. The worship of God. Now, the worship of men of God in Nigeria.
So that's the one that I'm even thinking about.
So worship of God, worship of something. So the word worship means feeling or expression of reverence and adoration for a deity.
They're almost like idols.
That is worship. I'm coming to that worship. Then the third word of serve. What does it mean to serve? A quick peek at Google meaning of this will show you that it is an act. To act like a servant to others. To wait on the table. Serve people. Extend hand of help to people.
Right.
That is what serving means. So now, tell me, of the three words, which one do we go to? Which one should we be going to church? Which one did the Bible command us to do? Fellowship with one another. Do not forsake the gathering of the brethren. So the purpose of going to church is to go there and fellowship
with one another.
You are not going to church to serve God. You are not going to church to worship God. Now, serving God should be a thing that permeates through your life. Every second of your life should be service to God and humanity. Service to God and humanity. Every second of your life. Then worship. What did the Bible say about worship? It says, worship God. Those who worship God must worship Him in spirit and in truth. So you must be in that situation of attuning your spirit to God to worship Him in spirit and in truth. Amen. So you don't go to church necessarily. Look, you check the action of people in the church.
Right.
Does it present that situation to serve God or to worship God in that moment? And so the only reason you go to church is to go and fellowship. Right. In that fellowship, you can now worship God or serve God momentarily.
Yeah.
But really, your life should be exhibiting the worship and service of God, true and true. It is not only the time that you go to church, and that's why I say that going to church is not serving God. Going to church is not worshiping God. That is religiosity. When you begin to think that by just going to church, You have gone to serve God, or you have gone to worship God. Going to church is to go and fellowship with one another for the purpose of helping one another, mentoring one another, and checkmating one another to remain in line of Christianity.
Thank you so much for that explanation. But the major issue we have in Nigeria is that the people think by serving those men, they are serving God.
Now,
that is
look at the definition of worship.
Caveat there.
Look at the
They
definition.
actually think they are serving God by serving those men and women.
Okay, look at the definition
It's
of
a
worship.
big problem.
So now, that thing you just said means that people actually go to church to go and worship men of God.
Yes, that's what
they don't go to church to go and worship God.
No, they go there
Because
and
now
them.
all this, by definition, worship means the feeling or expression of reverence and adoration for a deity. Who is a deity? Some people think, I made the point on some other channel, that we have idols in Nigeria pulpits. But people think that idol is just when you mold something and keep it somewhere and then go to reverence it and serve it. No, we have moving idol. Anything you place, you put in place of God and worship and reverence and pay obeisance to, that is what becomes
an
idol to you. And so what they do in church, what most Nigerians do, the Nigerian people do, is to go to church to worship men of God, not worship God.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. K, to be here today again to provide clarity, because I understand that you asked this question based on the points that I made in our last conversation,
Right.
that going to church is not actually serving God. And I will make it clear. But before I make it clear, I want to actually put more light to what you just talked about, living in denial. I consistently continue to mention neutralization theory. And part of that theory says that people live in denial
Right.
of the truth. And also, it also says that people blame others, blaming others. You understand? So, this is the situation that brings people to denial stage. And shattered dream leads to shattered dreams is the terminal end of
living captivity.
captivity.
Living in captivity,
Living in captivity.
move to a willful ignorance.
It's
to
as a
shattered
result
dream.
of willful ignorance.
Ignorance, yes.
And willful ignorance
Leads to shattered dream.
Shattered dream.
Shattered dream leads to denial.
Good. I think the point is willful ignorance leads you into captivity. And that captivity at the end results to shattered dream.
Which is now people living
So
in
people
denial.
who are shattered, whose dreams are shattered, I can class in two categories.
Right.
One are the people whose shattered dream resulted in terminal end of everything in their life. Those who die because of the result of their shattered dream. Like the movie you showed in our last episode.
And that's why they transfer that to the GEO and the mama of whatever they have them. And some of these very loud women who call themselves pastors, you know, is very, the toxicity is so high that people are so ignorant of what going to church is all about. They think by going there to even serve that woman, they're actually serving God. If by serving that man, they are serving God. Take for instance the church that we attend here in New York. It took me like 2 years to even know who the wife of the pastor was, because it's not like they bring her in a stage where one role is meant for XYZ and the second role is meant for XYZ. So how can you now educate the people of Nigeria that going to church is not serving the man who called himself a GEO or a pastor or the wife, but going there to fellowship with one another, to remind ourselves of what we should be as Christians?
Dr. Nana.
How can they come out of that denial?
Yes, Dr. Nana. The truth is that if the foundation is faulty, a home cannot stand. I made the case last week that ignorance is a big problem. It's a crime, it's a cause, it's a sin.
Right.
When you are ignorant, you do stupid things, you do foolish things. Tell me, if you are doing something and you don't know the reason why you are doing it, you have to somehow create a reason for doing that thing.
That's right.
As a human being, it makes logical sense.
Right.
So if you are going to church and you don't know the reason you are going to church, it is also it will make sense that you create a reason for going to church. So if you go to church and you understand what church should be about, you will understand that there are different gifts that are equal. That one of the gifts, only one of the gifts is prophecy.
Yeah.
That one of the gifts is teaching.
It's teaching.
That one of the gifts is discernment. That one of the gifts is even caring for people. There are different gifts, but people, in fact, prophecy is one of the last. Let me try to classify them. I hope I'm able to get it here and classify them for you. You will see, Paul says that the gifts include wisdom, knowledge, healing, miraculous power, and prophecy. That's what Apostle Paul says. That those are some of the gifts. You understand?
Right.
So what is wisdom? The Bible said, get wisdom. Whatever it costs, get understanding.
Get understanding.
Knowledge is under the same category. Those come before even healing, before miracle, before power, before prophecy. So, but they took the last one because they don't know the reason why they go to church.
Right, the miracle
They
one.
took the last one, and anybody who has that gift of prophecy or the gift of teaching, which falls under the knowledge, they just exalt the person. And human beings are worship animals. Every human being, you remember the story of Moses. When Moses went because of his people to go and get the 10 commandments,
right.
Before he came, because they are worship people, they didn't see any direction. So they now decided to make an idol for themselves.
Good.
That's exactly what is happening in the
Nigeria,
church today.
right.
The people have lost direction. They don't know the reason why they are going to church. The major reason of going to church is to keep each other in check.
Fellowship.
To care for one another.
Right.
To fellowship with one another.
Right.
It's just like you would do, there are fellows of different associations.
That's right.
Something of common interest. Our common interest as Christians is the Christian faith.
Right.
And the tenets. And the only way we keep ourselves in check and to continue to help one another grow and mentor each other is through fellowshipping.
With one another.
And the gathering should be about fellowshipping and reminding ourselves of the word of God. You are not converting anybody who is already converted in the church. If you evangelize, you go to places where they have not heard the word of God, where they don't know about God. You tell them about God, and some of them will now join the crowd to continue to be lifted up in spirit and in truth. How to pray. You don't teach somebody in the church how to pray anymore. You only remind them.
That's a fellowship.
The Bible already has standard for praying.
Iron.
Yes, the Bible already told us when you want to pray, you say this: Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be your name, thy kingdom come. That's a framework. You cannot develop it around there. And how do you, a framework, you as a researcher, my doctor, you know,
right.
that we work with framework.
Right.
And we work with theoretical framework and the other type of framework, the qualitative one. You understand? Mm-hmm. So we do theoretical and conceptual framework, which means that those framework, when you get a lot of teams, you work, that framework provides you the standard. So if the Bible already gave you standard for praying, if the Bible already gave you standard for your gatherings, why are you not following it? Why? Tell me. Because of what I said before, ignorance. When you are ignorant, then anybody will fill in the gap for you and feed you with
any nonsense and you take it.
The reason why I pick on the topic denial and empowerment is because I just feel that many people are living in denial, seeing all this GEO, what is coming out of them, what they have said they are actually doing, and some of them who are now old, who said they have done the best that they could. What is the best that they have done? By showing people how to fly jets, is that the best that they have done? By showing people that our God is rich, so if you are poor you have no God, is that the best that they have done? Or by telling people that they were drinking tea and coffee with a God, which God were they? So I mean, all of those kind of exhortation that they exalted themselves actually drifted people away from actually going to that church to fellowship with one another. So they're actually looking at them as if they are the representation of God, and that's why all those glamour and everything was now bestowed on them, because they exalt themselves to that height, and the people become like flocks who are just going after the man in the high top there, and leaving God, drifting all their mind and their attention away from God, but to that man, and now pouring all the riches and everything that they have, and then he cannot tell them anything. By selling your house or selling your car and bringing the money, then God will now hear you. So those people, now if you come and start telling them that that was not the reason why they are in the church, how do you think they are going to continue to empower themselves or live in denial? So how are we going to help our viewers to understand?
Dr. Nana, the truth is that these charlatans did not exalt themselves there. Listen to me carefully. Human beings are worship animals. I've given you a story about even the children of God when they were saved. The people exalted them there because of ignorance. They made them who they are because of ignorance. I hope you are getting it.
I'm getting it.
Because they are ignorant of what they should be doing around gathering together, they help to make this, because now they have no focus.
Right.
They don't know why they go to church. And this man is the man who appears every day and speak out of one of the gifts, which is gift of teaching. People, it should not be gift of teaching. There are many people in that gathering who can teach. Why is this man always handling the microphone and refusing to retire? Some of them for 50-something years, they come and they tell you clearly that they are doing business and you are still with them, that you should pay. If you cannot pay, you get out of the. Some of them drive you from the front seat and say because you are not paying enough, you go to the back, that the seat is meant for other people. Some of them do shows. You go to church from beginning to the end. You are like going to a disco hall. The church is no longer preaching end time message. They are no longer preaching redemption. They are no longer preaching repentance. They are no longer preaching anything that has to do with holiness. All they preach is prosperity. My God will be prosperity God if you come and worship here. You understand? So what is the basis? Ignorance. So our people need to begin to educate themselves first. Why are you going to church? The purpose of going to church is to go and fellowship with one another. And no man in that gathering should be higher than the other. Because inside everybody, God has reposed a gift. If you don't have the gift of prophecy, you have the gift of teaching. If you don't have the gift of teaching, you have knowledge, you have wisdom. If you don't have those, you have the gift of caring. And all of them are equal. No one is bigger than the other. The reason they exalt these people is that those people are the people who tactically decide to open these places as a business and deceive people. And because the people don't know the reason why they should go to Christian gathering, is to go and fellowship with another Christian so that they can keep themselves always in check, in line with the principle of Christianity.
So that's why they thought that serving those men is serving God.
So absolutely.
Serving those women is serving God. Now if they finish serving the men, they start serving their children.
Nature by itself.
They are actually now serving God by serving the men's children.
Dr. Naitna, nature by itself does not accommodate vacuum.
And most of them are bringing up their children to take over.
You are not listening to me.
I'm listening.
The reason why I'm saying it, I want you to get that point.
Right.
When there's a vacuum, nature will naturally fill it up with something.
the vacuum is there, and the gap is ignorance. There's ignorance, there's a gap in knowledge, in wisdom. People don't know the reason why they go to church. The reason why they go to church is not to go and worship God. So if you go to church and say you go to worship God every Sunday and you don't see the God there, what do? You begin to serve the person you see.
Right.
You begin to worship the person you see who tells you that he's relating with God on your behalf. And because you go there to go and say you serve God, so you now think that, oh, God is in this person, so let me serve him so that I can serve God.
So
that's it.
Information is key.
Information.
Instead of living in denial, our program actually, this is a talk show, and me and my husband, we talk a lot. So we want to bring our own ideas and our thoughts to share it with you, because we believe that you take one or two things from it. So I will ask you that you subscribe and share this video to others to know that going to church, you are not going there to serve God. You are going there to fellowship with one another. So if you have that in mind, that means you already know how to serve your God, and you know God, because that should reflect in everything, every areas of your life, from Monday through Saturday. It's not like going to church on Sunday to go and serve him, because you're already serving God anyway, because he created us. So if you know that, then it makes it easier for you to know that the man out there that is preaching as a pastor is just to remind all of us of how we should live as Christians. And if he's not doing that, then he has failed in his own job to do. And you should not ever exalt him above any other man that you see that is in that congregation.
Nana. Yes, Dr. Nana. One of the work of the church, one of the things you should do in the church is teaching. According to the Bible,
right.
According to Apostle Paul, who is one of the vital head of the early church. Teaching is one of them. I'm telling you now, write it down. There are 3 critical things you should do in the gathering of the brethren.
Right.
One is what? I just told you now. Teaching. That's teaching one another. Now, the second one says, under the knowledge thesis, it says, the other will be breaking of bread. Breaking of bread. So because Christ said, do this in memory of me. You understand? So that is part of the things you should practice in church. Then the third one is prayer. Praying for one another. So going to that gathering is also to help you know how to pray, to guide you. How many times do many of them pray there? All they go there is to go and listen to this charlatan telling you stories of what did not happen, filling you up with lies, trying to move you away from focusing on Christ, instead to focus on their stories and that magnifies them, that increase them and minimize God.
Right.
So now let me just give you this interesting quote from my research. Paul the Apostle regards the church. I told you before that Paul was one of the significant critical head of the early church. Paul the Apostle regards church as the body of Jesus. If you remember our last program, I said Jesus is a phenomenon.
Right. Jesus
Christ is a phenomenon. So everything about church is tailored after his life. And that's why we are Christians.
Right.
So now, Paul the Apostle says, Jesus Christ regards the church as the body of Jesus, who is the head. Christ should be the head of the church, because the church is tailored after his life. Okay, now all people in the church have an important role to play. I'm trying to explain the system theory that is involved here now. Church operates on a system theory. Okay, the church is as weak as the weakest link.
Right. So the system has to be
so in the case of Nigerian church,
the
weakest link is the pulpit.
Yeah.
Okay, so now the people in the church have an important role. Everybody in the church have an important role to play for that gathering to hold. Different members of the church have different roles. This is a quote from online, but all are vital to make it function well.
As the system.
Tell me about system theory.
That's system theory for you.
Thank you. Now, Paul goes so far as to say, if one part of the body suffers, the whole body
Body
suffers.
suffers, yeah.
This shows how caring for one another within the church is the critical reason why you gather. Caring for one another.
But that's not happening these days.
Listen, the man says caring for one another within the church is vital as members. As members, lives are so connected. You should be connected to one another. That is the essence.
But it's
of
so
that.
disconnected.
So
because they-
now you go there and you say, this is the man that you should worship. The man should not walk. The man should not be blamed for anything. Even if the man is killing somebody and tells you not to kill somebody, he is the only one who is entitled because you believe. Now you have made him the God in place of the God that you should be serving. Will Christ kill somebody? Will Christ fornicate? Will Christ kidnap people? So you hear that your GEO has the time. Will Christ defraud people? Will Christ tell people to come and donate the money they don't have without caring to know if they had issues? Remember, let me tell you some stories about Christ. When he found that people did not have food to eat, what did he do? These are the miracles that he performed.
Right.
He performed the miracle. He provided. He said, bring fish. Whoever has fish, bring, so that he can make more fish and more bread for people to eat and be satisfied. So Christ provided for people who have nothing. Right? So what should Christians do? Provide for one another.